With AI and translation software becoming better by the day, should you even bother learning Japanese? Let's talk about that. My name is Tony Vega. I'm a legally blind content creator. My focus is Japan. I started Japankyo.com in 2016, and I've produced podcasts and videos about Japan ever since. Japan Station is my podcast. You can find it over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all those places. But if you want to watch the video version, you can find it here on YouTube. Subscribe, like, and comment while you're here. Let me know what you think. Leave me a comment. I would greatly, greatly appreciate that. And if you want to support what I do financially, you can head on over to Patreon and Ko-fi, whichever's better for you. Links down below. Let's get into it. So today the topic is there even a point to learning Japanese anymore? Because what the hell, like AI and translation software, all these apps, they're just so good these days. So it used to be that translation software or the apps, whatever, were just funny. Like you would put, especially with Japanese, right? You would put in something and you would get something just absolutely ridiculous. And it was maybe unusable, or it would take so much correction where you might as well just translate it yourself if you have that ability, right? These days, though, they are just really, really good. Like I have a lot of Japanese followers on my personal Twitter account, and I see them using these translation apps. And I see the English that this produces from the Japanese that they input, and it's really good. Yeah, you can tell that it's AI doing it. You can tell that they used ChatGPT or whatever, DeepL or something to do it, but it's quite natural. You can understand even fairly complex topics, and you can get the point without much difficulty. Yes, there are some mistakes, there's some unnatural things, some weird things. Every once in a while, you might have a little bit of difficulty understanding exactly what is being said, but it's gotten to a point where it is very, very usable. I also see like speech stuff, like it translates, what is being said. For example, I've seen one of my Japanese followers using, I guess it was an app. I'm not sure what the name is, but they were listening to a X space, a Twitter space, one of these live broadcasts, like radio-ish, podcast-ish kind of things. And they were listening to that. It was in English. And then they were getting the Japanese text on their screen, on their phone. So when you have tools like this, it's like, is it even really necessary to learn Japanese anymore? Like we're talking about English to Japanese, but I'm sure there's Japanese to English. It goes both ways, right? So is there even a point? And here, I know the Japanese teachers, I've taught Japanese, I've taught English, I've taught Spanish. Like the language teachers are going to get upset at me, but I'm going to say no. For the most part, for most people, there is no point in you spending months, weeks, years of your life learning a foreign language. It is completely pointless at this time, and it's only going to become easier and easier to communicate across languages because these tools are going to continue to get better and better. Like I've said, it used to be where it was just funny, and I used to play with these like 20 years ago, like Google Translate or whatever, and it was just funny, but it's not like that anymore. If you are just going for a short trip, if you are in Japan and maybe you need to look at a menu, there's apps that'll translate that, on the right there on your screen. If you are asking for directions, a lot of people can speak some English, like at the train station. In Tokyo, in the big cities, there's lots of signs in English as well. You have your phone. If you have Wi-Fi, you can look up pretty much anything. And if you really, really need to do something, you can translate it in whatever, AI or translation app, and you'll get just about everything you need. So, all right, guys, that's it. Let's not learn Japanese anymore. No. So let me just say my perspective about who it is that should learn Japanese, or whether there is any value at all in learning Japanese. I do think that for a specific kind of person there is, and that there is still value in learning Japanese. So let me explain that. So I started studying Japanese like in junior high. I got a book from a Barnes and Noble, started studying, didn't get very far. In high school, I studied a bit more. didn't get very far. It wasn't until college that I really, really got serious about it. And it took me a long time to get to where I am today. I produce content in Japanese. I write in Japanese. I speak in Japanese. I've done translation. I've done interpretation. I even did interpretation for Yoshitaka Amano, the famous artist of Final Fantasy fame. I did this online. It wasn't in person. Unfortunately, I didn't get to meet him, but I've done this. I have experience as an interpreter. I have experience translation, not like certified or anything like that, but my Japanese language ability is good enough to do that. And I continue to use Japanese on a daily basis. I've worked in a Japanese company. So it took me a long time to get here. And even now, I'm not perfect. I make mistakes all the time. I say weird things sometimes, and I have to look up how to say things. But for the most part, I don't use translation software. I very, very, very rarely do. I do look up words from time to time in dictionaries, like online dictionary and that kind of thing. But I generally don't use translation software because I can say everything I need to say, and I can just look up a word here or there. And that, if I don't know how to read a kanji or something, I can just look it up and I know the rest. So I don't need it. But it's extremely useful. It's extremely, extremely useful. And I'm sure at some point or another, I will, use here and there and make use of it because it's just very convenient. So it took me a very long time to get to where I am today. And even now, I'm not perfect. Even the most proficient non-native speakers will still make mistakes from now and then, now and again. It just is what it is. Even native speakers make mistakes. So it just is what it is. Now, who should learn Japanese, right? Like if you wanted to right now, you could still learn Japanese. You could do it in a matter of months. You could get to a certain level of proficiency, like some basic conversation or even some pretty advanced conversation within months if you just truly, just totally immerse yourself. I know there's a lot of YouTubers and all that talk about that. It's totally possible if you totally like wholeheartedly dedicate yourself. But is it worth it? Is it worth it, right? So for who would that be worth it for? Oh my God, my English. You see what I mean? Like even native speakers make mistakes in English. I feel like I had a stroke right there. So who would this be like worth it for, right? Like basically, I think if you're really want to learn Japanese, like why would you do that? Because you enjoy the language learning process. You're a bit of a language nerd. Like for me, I went to University of Hawaii's master's in Japanese linguistics program, and I graduated from that. I love the Japanese language. I love thinking about it. I love learning what is so unique about it because it's very different from English. The onomatopoeias, the usage of the passive voice, the very strict like formality structures, and the suffixes and all this stuff that makes Japanese very different from English. Fascinating. I love it. I still love learning the language to this day and learning about the language. If you're that kind of person, go for it. You're going to enjoy it because, again, the Japanese language is super interesting. But here's something that I think translation software and all that and AI just is not going to replicate for a while. Like immediate human interactions. If you really want to get friends in Japan and friends that don't necessarily speak English, right? That you need that language ability still. You can do a lot of stuff with the translation software and all that, but there's still a barrier there. And especially if you want to have like good relationship or if you want a romantic partner or something like that, I'm sorry, but it's still going to be better if you can actually speak the language. Because here's the thing, and this connects with media, for example, like Dragon Ball, right? Like the way the characters speak, like Goku and Chi-Chi, they have these very specific dialects. Like Chi-Chi specifically has a very pronounced Tohoku dialect. Like that immediately brings to mind all kinds of, I don't know, like, oh, Tohoku, like country bumpkin and these things, right? Like that was not included in the English language dub in the subtitles, as far as I'm aware. So you're losing out on something. Yeah, it's a small thing. It's not necessary, but puns and cultural references, you lose a lot of that stuff in the localization process. And the localization process is absolutely necessary. You need skilled people to handle this. There's still a place for that. Translation software cannot catch all of that. It's impossible for them to localize, like, for example, a joke about a certain 1980s Japanese celebrity into something that a 2020s 20-year-old would understand in the US, right? Like you need good localizers for that kind of stuff. But the reality is that, for the most part, like you can translate it, right? So that's the case, but you need that extra nuance. And you're only going to understand the nuance of these characters, of these stories, of these jokes if you actually know the language, you know the culture, because language is more than just language. It's actually culture as well. And it's cultural references and it's jokes and all this stuff. You need to know about Kitano Takeshi to understand this joke about this person and this person that got arrested and this whatever. Like there's all kind of stuff in Japanese media, right? Just like there is in English language media, you need to know about the culture. And I think AI is not going to do that quite yet. So if you want to have good relationships with people, really have those bonds, connect with people on a really deep, profound personal level, knowing the language, yes, I think that's a huge advantage. If you can enjoy learning a language for the sake of learning the language and enjoy the differences in the language and the linguistic characteristics of it, go for it. Study that language, whatever it is. If it's Japanese, go for it. Do it. If you want to consume media and develop that like deeper understanding of these characters, of the stories, et cetera, much like with personal relationships, there is that benefit. Go for it. So, I do think there's still a place and there's still value to learning language. It's just that for most people, it's kind of diminishing returns at this point because you can do so much without having to learn almost anything, right? Yeah, knowing a few words if you're going to travel is helpful, but you can get by with knowing nothing or pretty much nothing. What about 5, 10, 15 years from now? I don't know. Like within the past year or two, even, it's been crazy to see how fast AI has been developing and how much like translation and all that has improved. It's concerning in a certain regard because it's all becoming like machine and just vanilla and there's still nuance that is being lost and there's concerns about copyright and what AI is being trained on, etc. Yes, that's all valid concerns. But society is moving in that way. Technology is moving in that way. Neural implants and I don't know, AR glasses that will stream the language that is being spoken to you directly into your ears and translate in real time. Like this is all stuff that will happen at some point, right? Like we're already seeing it happen, but it's just not at the level where everybody would use it, where it's seamless. 5, 10, 15 years from now, I do think that we're going to get to pretty much that level, if not that level. At that point, what will be the value of learning Japanese or any other language for that matter? It still comes down to the sense of satisfaction and accomplishment. Like learning Japanese has been one of the most satisfying, rewarding things of my entire life. The problem is that it's a big time commitment. It's a lot of effort, and for the average person, it's just not worth it. But you can say that about a lot of things, right? Like hobbies are just not worth it. They're not essential. So I don't know if it's your passion, you're going to do it anyway, regardless of the neural links or whatever, the glasses or ear implants or whatever it is that we're using in 10 years from now or 15 years from now. So it's really tough to say. It's kind of sad at the same time. It's super interesting, but it is also kind of concerning. So, but that's the reality of it, right? Like you can't deny that that is the way that things are progressing. So, yeah, if you're passionate about it, you'll do it. But if you are only going for a little bit, if it's not essential, for example, for fostering a business relationship that you know Japanese, then you just don't, right? Like if you're starting to like go to Japan to start a business with Japanese partners or whatever, and they don't know English, like yeah, learning Japanese would certainly be a way to grease the wheel, so to speak, like basically get those sales going and build those relationships. Yeah, of course, and or get into the entertainment, whatever it is. Knowing Japanese is going to be an incredible asset, but most people are not like that. So that's the reality. So for most people, no, there's no point in learning Japanese anymore. But if you're really passionate about it, if you have a specific use case, you need to know any language. You need to have a goal for why you want to learn that language. Most people are going to give up if their only goal is to learn the language. It's like, why do you want to learn Japanese? Because I want to learn Japanese. No, that's not good enough for most people. Now, some people are like, just amazing and they can do that. Just that's their goal. But for most people, you need an extra goal, right? Because I want to become an animator in Japan, or because I have a really close friend in Japan, I want to communicate with them in Japanese, or because I love the novels of whatever person, Haruki Murakami or something, and I want to read it in the original language. If that is your passion, then you will accomplish the goal necessary to accomplish that goal, which is learning Japanese. So think about it in that way, right? I do think there's still value in learning Japanese. It's just that for most people, not so much. Oh my god, the Japanese teachers are going to come after me. So if you really hate what I just said, drop me a comment. Let me know. Do you think is it pointless to learn Japanese right now? What is the point of even trying if it's going to take you perhaps years to get to a very proficient level of Japanese? Like, should you just give up? Are all these like YouTubers in like that talk about like you can learn Japanese and this and that? Like, are they going to start losing business from their courses that they're selling, their textbooks that they're selling? Like, I wonder if they've already been impacted. What about translators? Like, let me know. What do you think? Drop me a comment. And if you want to keep me fed and not broke, you can join the Patreon and or just do a one-time donation over on Ko-fi. Links down below, show notes, description, whatever. Subscribe, like, comment. Thank you so much for watching, and see ya in the next one. Mata ne!